Hey everybody, it's Zach from Myshire Farm. We are back again with another video to help you on your adventure with Coturnix quail and becoming more self-sufficient. Now in this video, we're going to talk about grinding your feed. Scratch that. We're actually going to be talking about never grinding your quail feed. Ever, ever, ever. Now this is kind of a hot topic because a lot of people own chickens and they grind their chicken feed, and that's kind of a normal thing in the chicken world, but quail are not chicken. So we're going to break that down, and instead of just taking my word for it, I'm going to give you the background and the science behind why you should never grind your quail feed. Ever, ever, ever. Now, with that, I probably have at least 5 to 7 customers a month, every month since we've been open, that grind their feed and then contact us, just in desperation, say, oh, my chicks are dying, I don't know what I'm doing. My first question always is, are you grinding your feed? Yes. Stop it right now. Don't do it. Well, it might be too big. Nope, they're going to be fine, I promise. And then they stop, and then they'll contact me 5 days later and say, haven't lost one since. It's like, yep. So we're going to go through that process now so that you might not have that issue. Or if you see somebody having that issue online, or one of your friends or one of your customers, you can easily explain this process to them. Now, I have talked to Klombach, which is who customizes our feed. I have also talked to our local feed mill, and they are much more scientifically knowledgeable than I am. But I'm going to break it down the best that I can, and I'm really going to break it down in layman's terms because that's just how I understand it. So you can always contact your local mill and they can maybe explain a little bit better for you. But I'm pretty much going to give you the bullet points so that you understand the process and not necessarily the scientific percentages. I just never got it, right? So before we begin, let me explain to you how feed is made at a normal mill. Now, I've talked to, like I said, multiple mills, and about 90 to 95% of mills make the feed the same way across the board. It's the same machines, maybe a different company, but same machines, same process, same everything, right? Now with that, there's going to be a few different mills that do it differently. So I'm sure I'll hear about it in this video that they don't make it this way or whatever the case may be. But the majority of mills make it this way. So they will receive and then they clean all of the ingredients, right? And then they will crush all the ingredients together, and then they'll batch, they'll mix, and they'll pelletize. Now, pelletize is a really important word for this video because we're going to be coming back to that in just a second. But so they crush, they mix, and they pelletize all the feed together. And that's how they get the pellets, right? Now, the big thing that you need to understand about that is that all quail feed and all chicken feed is made into a pellet first. It is always made into a pellet. And then you might be buying mini pellets or crumbles or mesh. That's fine, but it all came from a pellet. Now, I wanted to show you something real quick. On any bag of feed that you buy, or it should anyway, any bag of feed that you should buy should have something that says guaranteed analysis. I don't know if you can see it on this camera or not. Guaranteed analysis. That is the percentages of what's guaranteed to be in there. So for example, and I just want to explain this process to you, it says that the crude protein minimum is 20%. The crude fat minimum is 3.2. The fiber maximum is 3%. Now the calcium minimum is 2.25 and the maximum is 3.25. That's a guaranteed analysis, right? So they've tested this. This is what they've come up with. Now this is a crumble feed, right? Now all that is going to be tied into what I'm talking about next. So stay with me. I'm just trying to break it all down for you, okay? Now, if it all starts with a pellet, how do they make it into a crumble, right? You might be asking that. Well, they grind it, but I'm telling you never to grind. Well, there's a difference. So these mills spend literally hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars on very specific scientific equipment to break this pellet down and keep the guaranteed analysis. All right. So let's say it's a mini pellet. So they're taking this pellet and they're pretty much cutting it in half, right? That both pieces of that pellet have to have the same guaranteed analysis or it's no good. right? Well, it's the same thing as a crumble. They pretty much use this huge grinder, right? And they put all the feed in there. But this huge hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollar grinder specifically and scientifically cuts through all these pellets and crumbles it, where each crumble is a guaranteed analysis of what I talked about before, or whatever your guaranteed analysis is, right? And then if they want it to be a mesh, then they actually spread it out all across this huge floor. It's clean floor. And then they actually use, it's called something different, but it's pretty much like a steamroller, like you'll see construction workers on the highway use. And they pretty much just roll over it and it all meshes it all up, right? But that machine goes at a certain speed, at a certain angle, at a certain. Everything is scientifically done so that every piece is a guaranteed analysis. Now, the problem with you grinding your feed is if you're putting it into a blender or even an inexpensive grinder. I mean, even if it's a $300 grinder, that's pretty expensive, except for it's not hundreds of thousands of dollars. So it's not the same, right? So when you grind this feed up, the biggest issue is not every piece is going to have ingredients in it. Not every piece is going to have the guaranteed analysis. Not every piece is going to be good for your quail. So you grind all this feed up, and let's say, for the most part, people usually do it for quail chicks, right? I don't hear a lot of it about the layer feed. But, so you grind all this feed up and you give it to your chicks and they have plenty of food, except for how much of that food is actually got good ingredients and nutrition in it, and how much of it is just dust or one ingredient or not enough, and how much of those crumbles are too much for that quail, right? So the problem is we're not scientifically proportioning it all out. So there might be 100 chicks in your brooder and they all might be eating a ton. But if you're grinding it, 50% or more of those chicks are just eating sawdust. You know what I mean? They're not really getting any nutrients out of it. They're not getting the guaranteed analysis out of it. So then you're going to start having lethargic quail. You're going to have quail that kind of tip over. You're going to have quail that is hard to move. You're going to get quail that kind of get bloated because they just don't have anything in them. You're going to get a lot of issues. And even if they do make it to adulthood, they're going to be a whole lot smaller because they didn't get the right nutrition along the way. So the reason why I always say never to grind your feed is because they do it in a specific way where you have a guaranteed analysis. But when you differentiate from that and you start grinding your own feed, this goes away, right? And then you just don't know what you're feeding them. So I understand that there's some people out there that do grind their feed and have success with it. More power to you. But I am talking about a bulk. 95% of people never grind your feed. You never should. If you're doing it, you probably should stop because of what I just talked about. I'd love to know what your thoughts are in the comments. I want to know if this was an easy breakdown for you to understand. I appreciate you watching. We've got more videos coming your way. The next video is going to be absolutely amazing. You will not want to miss it. And we'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody, and stay safe.